Well, good morning. This morning I want to talk to us about something a little bit different. It's been on the news recently. The events which have happened in America over the last couple of weeks have sent shockwaves throughout the world. The image of an unarmed man lying on the floor, being asphyxiated and then murdered by a white police officer's knee. And the police officer kept his knee on George Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes, 2.5 minutes of which he was unresponsive. It's stomach churning. And this horror that we've seen in the last few days followed the killings of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, also in America. If you're unaware of those, then do look them up and inform yourself. Now, I'm going to be really honest here as we think about these issues of race. I find this stuff really, really hard. Here I am, I'm a white man, and I'm looking at this, if you like, from the outside. I've not experienced racism towards me, and so I struggle to understand what it is like to grow up as a black person or an Asian person or a person of an ethnic minority in a country which is predominantly white. And so it is tempting for people like me just to stay quiet, not to say anything, to be kind of blithely happy about the fact that this kind of extreme racism doesn't seem to happen on my doorstep, and so just to kind of carry on. But I think I'm convinced that won't do. And it won't do in part because, for my part at least, I'm a Christian minister. And I'm a Christian minister in a school which is full of white privilege. Now, that's a phrase which is contentious, and we'll come back to it in a minute. But as a Christian minister, one of my core beliefs is the belief that you can find on the first page of the Bible, page 1 of the Bible, and that is this, that every person, every human being is made in the image of God. And therefore, as a consequence, every human being has a dignity and value. And yet, our society, just as in the United States, our society doesn't reflect that fundamental reality that all human beings have value. What we see instead, sadly, is this white privilege. Now, white privilege can be thought about in a number of different ways. One way to think about it is simply this. I, as a white man, am twice as likely to get a university place at a top Russell Group university. I'm 3 times less likely to be arrested, prosecuted, and sentenced than a black person. I am 3 times less likely to be murdered than a black person. I am 3 times less likely to live in substandard accommodation and so experience all the other kind of problems which may be associated with societal poverty. These things are statistically true and are a fact. It is not a political statement. It is not a loaded statement. It is just a statement of fact. Those of us who are white experience those privileges, whether we realize it or not. Second, and maybe more importantly, a way of thinking about white privilege is this. It means that I possess those advantages by virtue of a systemic and historic pattern of discrimination and injustice. So think about it this way. I have £100,000 and this black person next to me has £1,000. £100,000, £1,000. I have £100,000 because my grandfather and his father and his father and his father rigged the system in favor of people who look like me. So the question for us is, what do we do in response? Well, this is where I think we have a great advantage of being a school with a Christian foundation, because the Christian faith offers a basis on which to respond in the following ways. Here's how we should respond. Number 1, we should be gutted. We should grieve with those in our community and those around the world who suffer this injustice. Jesus teaches us to mourn with those who mourn. Second, we should learn. Seek wisdom and understanding. Read a book or two. Read an uncomfortable blog or two. I'll put some resources up on this screen that you can have a look at. learn about our history and be confronted with an uncomfortable reality. So we should grieve, we should be gutted, we should learn, and third, I think we should speak and act. One of my heroes of the Christian faith was a German pastor in the Second World War called Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Now, Bonhoeffer spoke up against and acted against the Nazi ideology which persecuted the Jewish people. And as a result, he was killed just before the end of the war. And he said this, his Christian faith led him to say this: silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. We can't just stay silent. And so we do these things. We grieve, we learn, and we speak and act because there is a God who made every human being in his image. Every person has value and dignity and should be treated equally. That is the only real basis for such equality. So my question for us this morning, as we reflect on these big things, is can we make our school community one which grieves with people of colour who face injustice? Can we make our school community one which seeks to learn and seek wisdom in this area? And can we make our school community one which seeks to recognise racism wherever we see it and to speak out and act out against it? Let's pray for those things now.